Okay. Everybody, we're running a few minutes late. That's our fault. Let's all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. The first thing on our agenda is public comment, and I have two people on public comment, and the first one is Jessica Almeida. Jessica? Yes.
I first just want to state my name is Jessica. I live in Bristol. I have twins that go to Rockwell. They are in kindergarten. I will try to stick to the 3 minutes. I may go over by a minute or 30 seconds. I will try my best. I would first like to start by reading something directly from your handbook, or as you call it, the playbook. Acceptable face masks for school. And by the way, this is directly in line with the Rhode Island Department of Health as well. I'm assuming it was maybe copy and pasted, I don't know. Acceptable masks are 2 to 3 layer cloth mask or disposable surgical mask. Just want to make sure everyone knows that. Unacceptable masks are bandanas, gaiters, vented with the valve. I think that's it. Hold on. Gaiters, bandit. Yes. Okay. I have twins. They go to Rockwell, like I stated. The first day of school, September 8th, I sent them to school in a 2-layer, this is it right here, maybe a different color, they have like 10 of them, a 2-layer cloth mask, which is within your guidelines, regulation. They made it almost the entire day, and around 1:30, I received a phone call from the school nurse. She's very nice, by the way, but she knew I was frustrated when she called because I got really upset. Did she hear Tara smile? Oh, okay. So she knows. Hi, Kim. And I explained to her I wasn't taking it out on her, but I was very frustrated because I read the handbook 3 times before I sent my kids to school. She said she wasn't aware exactly what was said in the handbook, so I told her. And she said, based on what I said, now she didn't have the handbook in front of her, but she said, based on what I said, she agrees that it's within guidelines. So I asked her to please go back to the classroom and give my children back their mask. I do not want them in a disposable mask. I don't want it for my own reasons. She did. My kids came out with them, so I knew it was done. Second day of school, September 9th. Sent them to school with the same type of mask, maybe different color. I received an email from the principal stating, she basically said, the nurse told you the day before, she said it in a more professional manner, I have it all on email if you need it. She said, the nurse told you the day before that they were not acceptable, therefore we will provide your children with disposable masks going forward. End of story. And then she CC'd the former interim superintendent, Mr. Hicks, and maybe the nurse was CC'd, there may have been someone else, I'm not sure. So I wrote her back and I let her know, this is what's in your handbook, therefore my kid's mask, whether you personally like it or not, it's within guidelines with your school playbook as well as the state. So Mr. Hicks emailed me back and said that his personnel know exactly what masks are good or acceptable or whatever. He said if I had any questions to contact the Rhode Island Department of Education legal office. And he gave me their contact, as I'm sure he was instructed to do. I called, I spoke with a woman named Velma. She works in the legal office. She stated, since I already spoke with the school, the principal, the superintendent, she said I had to appeal in front of the school committee. I guess that's the procedure. She said I have to request an appeal in front of the school committee. So, as you all know, I emailed you a formal letter asking to appeal. I was declined that appeal. They said they were not entertaining appeals. So I called the Rhode Island Department of Education once again, and I said the school committee's denying my request for an appeal. She said, well, that's a procedure, so it has to be done in order to, before I can go in front of the commissioner, which she was hoping I wouldn't have to. She said, the school committee needs to hear me. So I said, okay. She said that she was going to call attorney Ms. Carroll to verify that I was being denied an appeal. I said, well, I have it on email. I can forward it to you. She insisted on calling. So I believe they had a conversation. Velma calls me back and she says, they'll hear you. So I thought that meant the appeal. I was like, oh, that's great. So I reached out to Attorney Carroll again and said, like to appeal this, if you could put me on the agenda. And I was told that I would not be heard, the appeal, but I can voice my thoughts during public comment. And she, I forget what else, but I think that was pretty much summed it up. I was not going to be heard for the appeal. So I shouldn't have to worry, because as you may or may not remember, I was here about a month ago voicing my opinion on mask wearing, which is neither here nor there. I know that's the rule right now, so I'm not here to argue that. But my stance was pretty clear, especially since the East Bay newspapers also plastered me on the front page stating that. So I can't, as of right now, I don't know for sure, but you're telling me my 2-layer cloth mask that my kids went to school with, if that is not within your guidelines, which it is, then to me that's retaliation against my children because of my stance on mask, and that will be a bigger problem. So to be honest, I wanted to voice that. I don't know what comes next because it should be overturned, but since this is an actual appeal, I'm not sure where to go from here, because the next would be the commissioner's office, but Velma said hopefully it can be settled here, and I was also instructed it shouldn't even have gone this far. So that's all I have. And if someone could either after the meeting or right now or email me to let me know what the next steps would be, because like I said, this is within your playbook as well as the Rhode Island Department of Health. Thank you.
Very much.
Good evening, everyone. First, a request. I noticed I was looking up the minutes of the meetings, and I think the last minutes that are on your website are June 12th. And I think since that time, we've had 3. This is the 4th meeting since then. I was hoping that the school committee could put its minutes out within a couple of days of the meeting so that people coming to the next meeting would have the benefit of reading the minutes before you approve them. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm wondering if the chair and legal counsel are of the same view and maintain the same view that no member of the public, no parent, no taxpayer, is allowed to ask questions either in group session or individually of the school committee and the members present. Is that in fact the case? Or is that a question you can't answer?
I can answer that question because I believe I have answered it before.
Okay.
If it's not on the agenda, the law says we cannot respond. What you asked for last time was not on the agenda. We don't respond. That's school committee law. You can look it up, Peter.
The meetings prior to that meeting where I was present was all about masks. And as I recall the agenda, masks were not on the agenda. And yet the whole evening was dedicated to pro and con on masking. So number 2, if it's not on the agenda, but it happens to be an issue of some critical importance to the membership of the Bristol Warren taxpayers and parenting, it seems to me an exception, that's what it calls for. It's a simple question on critical race theory. It's an important question. And I would think that the school committee members, and the superintendent are in the best position to answer the question whether or not each of you support or oppose the imposition or the infiltration of critical race theory into the curriculum of the Bristol Warren Public School System. And if you can't or won't answer that, then the public will never know what your position is. And I think that's regretful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hewitt. All right. I need a motion for the consent agenda, but I need to make a correction on one of the minutes. Yes. I'll do that. This is the minutes for August 16th. Oh, sorry. These are the minutes for August 16th, and they refer to an individual by an incorrect name, and I will give you the correct name. I can't hear you.
She didn't sign up to speak.
Oh, no, just sign up for it, please. Just go ahead. No, that's okay. But let me go through this while she's doing that. In those minutes, a name is incorrect, and so I have instructed the secretary to correct that, and it's on page 9 in the 4th paragraph,
Which month?
August 16th. The 4th paragraph down. No, I counted that one on the top.
Oh,
All right.
oh, is it forward?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, I know that.
Madam Chair, I was wondering if we should pull the proposal from the special ed director.
That is C, that is C.
So the proposal from the special ed director, just because I think it's something that the public would be interested in hearing about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The proposal from the special ed director that's on the consent agenda.
Oh, no, because we didn't list it as an item. We only listed it in the aggregate on the,
So you,
It's
excuse
one
me.
of the requisitions, right?
Yeah, as one of the requisitions, we can only speak to it when we list it
Okay.
in its,
I mean, I'm happy to vote for it. I just thought the public would be interested in the content, but that's fine.
or just pull them all and then you can discuss that.
It can be pulled
one.
for discussion.
you want to pull every
It's just
single,
request.
Well, no,
Oh, so we can just pull it for discussion.
right? I don't. It's not
Madam-
on the-
can we,
Why not?
Why don't you, after it's approved, after you approve the contract, why don't you say you want to discuss it? Everything's approved and then you're discussing it.
or explaining it?
You're explaining it.
Great, thank you. I can't. I think they're on now.
Lindsay Jacobs, before we vote on the consent agenda, I'm going to let Ms. Jacobs speak.
Apologize for interrupting earlier. Don't quite know the process. I come here tonight with respect for the committee, for our great school nurses and this whole community, but I also come to raise awareness around the fact that I think as a district, it's a time to look at how we can quarantine our kids differently. I work in a neighboring district, and I'm not here to say they do everything perfectly, but they do things different, and we're keeping more kids in the classroom. We are not quarantining whole classrooms of kids. 24 families aren't being disrupted because of one positive COVID case. It wreaks havoc in a household. If the issue is eating lunch in a classroom, it's time to figure it out. Whatever that means, if that means utilizing other rooms in the building, if that means interpreting the guidelines differently, it's time. We owe our kids to find a solution. We've been dealing with this now for a year. We need to find solutions to these hiccups when we're interpreting these guidelines. If it's recess, I know it seems impossible, but how on earth could 20 kids be within 6 feet of each other during a recess? And unless I'm interpreting it totally differently than what the playbook says, But I'm here to raise awareness that other districts are doing this differently, and they're keeping more kids in their buildings. That's less kids going to these testing sites and overwhelming these testing sites with kids who need to be tested. It's more kids in school. I'm begging this district to relook at how we are interpreting the guidelines that are in the Bristol-Warren playbook, that are in the playbook from the Rhode Island Department of Health. We have these guidelines. I wish we could use them more to our advantage to keep more kids in schools. Let's look at our seating charts. There are a lot of things we can be doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. All right, moving on to, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
No.
yes. They emailed me today. Stephanie Costello.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Costello, and I also agree with Lindsay Jacobs. I work in a neighboring district as well, and we use what we call the HALO approach, where we quarantine students that are directly around the child, 6 feet around, whether it's on the bus, whether it's at recess, whether it's at lunch, whether it's at snack. And we use seating charts in every single setting that we have. It is basically our guidelines. All teachers are asked to submit them immediately if you are to change seats. And I also agree with what Mrs. Jacobs had said, that it is extremely disruptive. It's disruptive to my own students that I teach in another neighboring district, considering I have a kindergartner and a third grader that have also been affected by this. This is the third year that my son has been going on in a pandemic. And as somebody who also has taught distance learning, being in a classroom, there's no makeup for being in a classroom versus distant learning, no matter how amazing you are at distance learning teachers. And I appreciate everything that the educators have done, including the nurses too, to keep our children safe. But I am asking that you strongly consider a different guideline to keep our kids in school, because it really matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. All right, getting back to our agenda. The consent agenda, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, and I'm removing C.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in
Is
favor?
this where we,
No. Yeah.
Oh.
You don't usually discuss it, so.
got it. Tell me when. I'm ready to go.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
The ayes have it.
No,
Now we'll go to C on the consent agenda. C on the consent agenda is the approval of a 3-year contract to the Director of Student Support Services. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Madam Chair, it's understood that this contract will run until June 30th, 2024.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Introduce.
Dr. Mara, would you like to introduce our new head of?
Would you please stand up for it? This is our Director of Student Services. How lucky we are to have her.
Thanks, Brenna. Now, Nikki.
At the Budget Subcommittee meeting, our new Director of Student Services came before us with a proposal regarding our some of our out-of-district students. The Budget Subcommittee voted to approve it unanimously and move it to the full committee, but it's something that I think demonstrates how forward-thinking and creative thinking our new director is. So I thought it was something that the public should hear about from her. Sorry for putting you on the spot.
I'm incredible. And one of the things that I was working on is an out-of-district proposal, because right now we are spending roughly $2 million on 50 out-of-student or 50 student out-of-district placements. So that's $2 million. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is with that large amount of money is looking into identifying tracking tools or processes for monitoring the progress of out-of-district students and or the readiness of current students to return to in-district classrooms. Based on my experience, without these tools or processes for tracking progress, many students will remain in out-of-district for many years. And this is a really unique opportunity for us at this time. It's conceivable that the district could reduce tuition costs by as much as $500,000 over the next 3 years. On a year-by-year basis, we could achieve this by, in the first year, reviewing all of our, out-of-district student records, including assessments, progress notes, evaluations, IEPs, and the creation of a recommendation of a tracking tool and processes of student progress. This would allow us to review the readiness to return to in-district classrooms, which could potentially reduce our spending by $125,000 this year. We're anticipating that this deep dive would cost about roughly $28,000. In our second year, we're going to be looking into implementing and maintaining the tracking tool and processes of student progress and readiness to return to in-district classrooms. In this year, we're going to roughly see a $200,000 reduction in out-of-district costs. So basically, in those next 2 years, we're going to see some really significant savings. Sorry, my mask. Excuse me. So as we continue to kind of collect and look through this, we're anticipating that second year is going to cost roughly $15,000. And then by the third year, with the consideration of adopting the recommendations for in-district program expansion. So we're really going to work diligently to reduce some of our out-of-district by increasing our in-district opportunities for our students.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenna.
All right, before we go to our action items, discussion and action items, I would like all of you to know I've told some parents, but I believe I gave them the wrong date. The October school committee workshop will be devoted to COVID, where we are, how many cases we have, what we're doing, what strategies we're using, looking at other districts, et cetera, et cetera. So that is the charge, and that meeting is on that Wednesday because Monday is a holiday, Columbus Day, I believe, or Indigenous Day. Tuesday, we don't have our attorneys, so the meeting is on Wednesday. And that will be the focus of that workshop. Okay? All right, moving on. The first thing under discussion and possible action is the Roger Williams University Memo of Understanding. I need, in order to discuss this, I need a motion for the purposes of discussion.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. What this is Roger Williams, in a nutshell, and I don't know if I should say what it is, so I'm just going to go to Sheila and let her say what it is.
Oh, I don't know. I wanted clarification. So there's a couple things. Is one, how many students are enrolled? And do the credits only transfer back to Roger Williams and they're not college credits for any college? And what is the program and why are we doing it?
So I've invited Dr. DiBiase here this evening.
No.
I've invited Dr. DiBiase here this evening to address some of those questions. She has the information for you. I had sent her the questions previously.
Okay.
Dr. DiBiase and team. We also have Wayne Lima and Nicole Lyons from the high school
Nicole is our coordinator for college and career. And Wayne is our STEM department chair. So thank you all for being here. The sheet that they're handing out is a list of the questions that were brought up previously at the budget subcommittee and their responses, and they will talk you through and answer any additional questions that you have about the MOU. In brief, the MOU is an opportunity for us to partner with Roger Williams University to increase our students' access to higher level mathematics courses in which they would receive college credits. So it strengthens not only our math department, but also our engineering program, which is a career and technical education program. And I will turn it over to you, Dr. D.
Good evening, everyone. So I think the first question that had come up was how many students are currently enrolled, which is about halfway down the page. We have right now total between the two courses is 33 students. We have 9 in college algebra, and we have 24 in college pre-calc. The second question was, I'm sorry, Mrs. Ellsworth, what was the second question?
The number of students, if the credits are only transferable to Roger Williams, or can they go to are they true college credits for these students?
They are true college credits.
So they're accepted at other universities?
Absolutely. Yes, any other universities that accept Roger Williams credits will accept these credits.
Can you just explain that?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
So in essence, if they are, through paperwork, they are Roger Williams University students. So we've had students that have completed it in past years, the college algebra course, and they get a transcript from Roger Williams University. So any student who is a full-time student who attends Roger Williams and decides to transfer to UNH, wherever. If UNH accepts those credits from Roger Williams, they're going to accept it from one of our students as well. So that's what you were saying. As long as the university normally accepts credits from Roger Williams University, they'll accept our students' credits as well.
Okay, and we're offering this program because we don't have a higher level, is that why?
So well, we have them, but they can't get college credit from the courses that we have. So the whole goal, and excuse me, this started probably around 5 or 6 years ago when the first conversation started to happen. It was just a way for us to help get some of our students to be college ready. So that's part of what, college and career ready. So we wanted to give them opportunities to see what it's like to take a college level math course. And so Mr. Pellerin's the teacher of both courses right now. So he does the in-class instruction, but all assessments, all grading are actually done by the college professor for the semester that course is running the same as the Roger Williams. So ours are full year courses, but one semester is dedicated to that Roger Williams course. So they are truly graded by a Roger Williams University professor for that first semester or second semester for the college algebra. So it's really exposure to what a college level mathematics classroom looks like, which we can't do because we're not college professors.
So the $5,940, excluding materials, that is just for a semester for these kids, basically, to go to Roger Williams.
So it's to take a course. So
for this semester.
Yeah. So just like at the same thing as Roger Williams, it's a semester long course, and so their whole philosophy was if it's a semester long course at Roger Williams, then we want it to be a semester long course at Mount Hope High School. So the pre-calculus, for instance, I can give you the example. Pre-calc, college pre-calc doesn't do a great deal of trigonometry in their Roger Williams course, where our pre-calc prior does include a great deal of trigonometry. So their first semester, our kids are doing the college pre-calc course, and then second semester, the curriculum that is normally covered by us, that's not covered by the Roger Williams program, that's what Mr. Pellerin will be teaching them second semester.
Okay, I just feel like that's great. When we say partner, we're still paying for it, like
Well, but this,
at a discounted rate, but
Well, I wanted to ask one question to follow up on yours
Yeah.
first. You only have 9 students in that one class in college algebra.
33 combined, yes.
Yes, but you have, for the college algebra course, you have 9 students. You're not running a course with 9 students, I hope. Hope you're running a course that's combined with other students. So all of those students are taking the same course, whether or not they signed up for it. Or
Yes,
are
but-
you teaching 2 courses in one classroom?
No, so they're taking the same curriculum, and I apologize that you didn't receive this paperwork earlier, but if you look on that first page, what our long-term goal is that the college algebra, the college pre-calc will become our honors program. So students it will not be mandatory for them to pay for or earn the Roger Williams University credits, but they'll have that option too. But all of our honor students will have access to the college level curriculum.
And
So-
my point is, they already have it. All the children in that course
But if
have
that,
the same option as those 9 students.
correct, but if I may, normally there's 75, well, what are our numbers? 60 to 75 students in an honors algebra. If we have 25 students who take the college algebra course, and that would mean the other students would not be getting the college credit or be seeing that same curriculum. So it's small now, but the future plan is that all 60 to 75 students who take Algebra 2 will take the same college credit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but I'm following, before I make any more comments, I'm gonna let everybody else comment. Yeah.
So just for clarification purposes, I'm not sure, I'm going to use my child as an example because he's actually in Mr. Pellerin's Algebra 2 class. So he's a 10th grader. But I see here that this is college algebra is 11th grade? Or is this, so is it honors algebra 2 or is it college algebra?
So currently, right now, we have both of them. And
Okay.
so the plan is to shrink them next year to be the Algebra 2 honors is the college algebra. And then the pre-calculus honors is the college pre-calc. So that
So
is the
right
plan
now-
going forward.
That class of Algebra 2 honors has 9 students in it that are being graded by college professors
Yes,
for half a semester.
for
For a semester.
yeah.
For a semester, half of the year.
Yeah.
And then the classroom teacher is grading the rest of the students.
Correct.
And instruction and materials. So, the cost to train, so my second question is, where is the funding for the $5,940 coming from? What line in our budget? That's number one. And then if there is additional training, because I'm assuming that the teachers had to be trained, professional development, who paid for the training? And where did the payment come from?
So the training is actually part of the MOU. So it's not a separate
Okay.
charge because it's part of the MOU. And to address the part about the, the 5,000, so the plan is to do it similar to follow the same process as we do for students taking an AP assessment. So when students take an AP assessment, they cut the check for the AP assessment to the school district pays for the AP. So that's what the plan is that the school district isn't taking money out of their pocket to pay that. It's the students will pay for the credits, so they'll send it to the school, and then the school cuts the one check to Roger Williams. And so one of the things to know is that the numbers that we're giving you are the highest possible numbers there are. So there's an example in the sheet that it's only, just for the sake of argument, keeping it even at $300. It's only 300 if only 20 students choose to do it. If 40 students choose to do it, then it's going to be $150 per student to earn 3 college credits. So we only have to, so they've set a flat thing. If we had 100 students do it, we're dividing that money across all 100 students. So the maximum a student would pay is the $300, the $297. That's the maximum they would pay for the college credit. As it goes up, the amount that they pay goes down.
Anybody else? I have a question. Yes. Thank you for explaining that. I just have a quick question where I just need some clarification. So when you say all the honors kids will be in the college classes, at first I thought you meant that they would all be taking the college course, but then only you have to achieve a certain grade to get the credits, right? So is it like that, or will there
Yes.
be 2 instructors in the classroom?
No,
'Cause
no,
it's-
so it's one class. They'll all have the same curriculum. The one
And it's the
instructor will do
college
the teaching.
curriculum through
It's the college.
Roger Williams.
Yes.
And then those who don't get a B or above, or whatever the cutoff is, they just don't get the college credits, but they get that grade for honors
Yes,
algebra or honors free.
or those who choose not to. Someone may choose not to, for whatever reason, choose,
To take
you
the
know,
test.
do the Roger Williams portion of it. They'll just do the honors portion of it. So that would be their decision.
But that's where I'm getting confused, because in the honors algebra, in the college algebra, my understanding was that it's a full year. So what is the other curriculum?
The college, so the course, so the course itself is a full year course at Mount Hope High School.
Yes.
The course at Roger Williams that we're associated with is a semester course. So one semester of their time at our school correlates to the semester at Roger Williams. So that's the semester they're enrolled at Roger Williams University. The other semester in the college algebra course, we're preparing them for the college algebra course.
So their first semester in that class is your curriculum, getting them ready to take the second semester. I did not know that.
Correct.
I thought
Correct.
the whole thing was
Nope.
I thought the full year was, okay, thank you for that clarification.
I just want to say that at first, because it goes against every instinct in our bodies, right, to charge kids in public school for anything. But I've talked to some of my son's peers, and you guys have done a great job of explaining this to the kids, because I've spoken to kids who know they want to go to college and who know that they want to get into math or science, engineering. And they understand that 3 credits for this price is something that they have been so motivated to get these grades so that they can do this for that reason, knowing that they will leave with 3 credits they don't have to pay for at another school. So I just think it's worth kind of naming that, because again, I think people feel uncomfortable with the idea of charging kids when they're in public school. But if it's something that they are going to be paying, you know, university prices for later, I think it's a great opportunity.
And that's why we're not mandating that they have to take the Roger Williams. So someone might want to just be in that course, but not have that extra kind of be college burden on them, so to speak. So they'll have that option to say, hey, I want to take the curriculum, I want to go through this course, but I don't necessarily want to be associated with that Roger Williams, because really for us, it's about exposing them to college curriculum and college instruction, which we can't do currently.
And I think it's also important to mention that with the college algebra, they have the potential for 3 college credits at $297, which is unheard of, but also potentially, if they go on, if they go on to the pre-calc, it's a potential of up to 4 credits in the pre-calc the following year for the same cost. So.
And
I just, again, for clarification, so this document exists because right now, students and families are not paying for these courses, right?
Don't look at me.
Where's, I'm just wondering why a memorandum of understanding? Is this to get that in
So-
place so that families are paying for these credits?
Yes,
Okay.
so initially, when we ran the program, as Mr. Lima said, this has kind of been in the works for 5 years or so. And, you know, the first time that we ran it was pretty much just a pilot for the college algebra. We have been in quote unquote negotiations, so to speak, with Roger Williams prior to when this MOA was written for about a year and a half because we were, the initial kind of quotes that Roger Williams had given to us to charge students to take the course were unrealistic. And so we met with them several times, they went back and forth, and the final outcome was they would only charge us the $99 per credit or $297 for the course, with the understanding that we would provide a minimum of 20 students. That's where the MOA came from.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to
I
take a
just,
minute.
one second.
Oh, go ahead.
So Wayne, I just have one more question, sorry. So on the MOU, which I just totally can't find. Oh, no, that's not it. Oh, it's right here in front of me. The 5,940 is just, it's not that we're paying that. It's just the max that, oh, we are paying that? No. Okay. Oh, you, well, like that, I was a little nervous. So we're not paying that.
Correct.
But we've come to an agreement with Roger Williams that the max the students will pay is based on the number of students taking the test or taking the credits. Is that right?
Yeah, so no, regardless of, so our end is that we need to make sure we have 20 students
Minimum,
complete
yeah.
either of the courses. But, and like I said, when we change it to where this becomes the honors course, there's going to be 150 possible students.
Okay.
We need 20 of them to to opt for the Roger Williams piece, which I'm sure is not going to be an issue because we're already making those numbers now. So I'm not too concerned with that. But yeah, so I think the way Roger Williams worded it was that we're paying.
Yeah, it was confusing by the
Yeah,
MOU,
and
yeah.
so really it should say at the student cost of, a maximum student cost of $99.
So if a family can't afford it, do we help them? Like
So that was the one thing that we said that we would, moving forward, have to find some kind of a line, whatever is the appropriate place, to put something there to help out those families who can't. So that would be
nice
the,
if Roger Williams would.
that would be the one.
I agree.
Oh, go ahead. Thank you.
When you, going to date you, date him. But this is the first time that the high school's done this. This is the first time we've ever charged money for it. Because John took finite math with Mrs. Carenti here at Bristol High School, and he got credit at the University of Rhode Island, and it didn't cost anybody a dime. So I have a real problem with what Roger Williams is doing, and I have a problem. I happen to think that charity begins at home. They live in our town. These are the students and the families that live in this town, and I do not think that children should be charged for anything. If this is a college course that Roger Williams is offering to them, then they should get that free of charge. And I can't in good conscience ever approve in a program of studies that if you want what you want, you have to pay for it. Because there are other things too. We had this argument about AP courses because some people take the AP course and they don't want to take the test. And you had the rule that you had to pay for the test before you could take the course. And we changed that rule. So right now, I'm still really not happy with Roger Williams. we're charging any of our students a dime for taking a course. And for that reason, and that reason only, I'm going to vote no. I'm sorry, Kurt.
That's all right. So, no, I think that the clarification is that all the students who are taking these classes walk away with the benefit of the instruction and the education.
Correct.
The students who want to buy the college credits, because, I mean, I'm with you, Maj. I grew up in a country where you didn't pay to go to university. So it chaps me as well. But it is a private institution. So if you want the credits, they're offering them for purchase. But the kids, regardless of whether or not they purchase those credits, are receiving the benefit of the education, right?
Correct.
And then your step towards offering that, not just to those that say yes, but to every single kid who takes these classes. That's going to be everybody.
Correct.
The other question I had is the baseline, the 20 kids, is that across both courses or is that in each?
So that was prior, that was the first few years, it was just a college algebra grant.
But it is across both courses.
Okay.
It's combined. So it could be one student in college algebra and 19 students in pre-calc or vice versa. It doesn't matter. It is combined.
And what happens if by chance we don't make that 20 student threshold?
And that would be the case that we would need to pay the difference
Okay.
if we did not get that 20. That's what we stated earlier.
And is this a year-to-year agreement with them or?
So when we spoke to them last, they did say that the fee that was, we tried to kind of get them nailed down to, it's not going to go up, it's not going to change. And they did agree that at least for the coming school year, it would not change, but they would not guarantee for future years that it would not change.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wayne, doesn't the college allow firemen and policemen to go there for free to take courses?
I believe so.
That's what I thought, Wayne. I thought that was true. So we're talking about a good amount of people. And here we're talking about, what did we say, $5,900, whatever it might be. The college, I'm sure, has quite a bit of money down there. I've been down there. It looks pretty impressive, you know what I mean? And I think in a budget that they have down there, $5,900 would not even be noticed. So I think what you ought to do is go back and check with the college and say, look, this is the way the school committee feels, that we've got some kids that can't afford this, and we do that, right? Mm-hmm. And some kids who are embarrassed to say, no, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to be embarrassed that you're paying for the bill for me, that kind of stuff. And then parents the same way. So I think the way to get around it is go down to the college and ask them to pick up the tab. And that's what I think it should be. And that's the way I'm going to vote, Wayne. I'm all for the college credits. I'm all for what you're doing. I'm all for the courses. Obviously, you know that, right? But I'm not for paying a tab for anybody.
I would say to you, if that is the pleasure of the committee, I am more than happy to set up another meeting with Roger Williams to say that this is what the committee has decided, and so can you work with us?
And if you need a member of the alumni, come. I'll come with you. Okay.
Hang on a second, Aaron. Karen wanted to talk.
I just have one
You have
quick
to speak
question
really into it.
about the credits. Since it was mentioned here that they're transferable to other college who accept Roger Williams credits, if it was that important to state that, are there many? I'm just curious, and you may not know because, yeah. But I would hate to see, if in fact the kids do end up buying or paying for credits, that they are accepted, and there's just like maybe a few places that won't accept them.
So from my understanding, the college algebra and pre-calculus are pretty standard courses across all universities. It's not a very unusual course. So my understanding is at most universities that accept transfer credits from other universities would accept those credits. There, if it was a very unusual course that, then they might, I would say that would be more of a chance that they would look at it and not necessarily accept it, but college algebra and calculus are pretty standard.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
On Exhibit B1, it says Mount Hope will pay the tuition costs of participating students at a reduced rate of $5,940 for the 21-22 academic year. Mount Hope will also provide the textbooks. So I'm not sure, is that a guarantee? Is that the memorandum of understanding that we're going to pay $5,940 plus the textbook?
So we're going to pay for, and there's really, so there's some language in this that's somewhat confusing. There isn't a textbook. It's an online platform. So there isn't a textbook, but it's $53 for access to the online platform. But Roger Williams just said they can't send a bill out prior to students. So that's why they worded it this way, to say that the district is paying the $5,000, basically the $6,000. But as we've said before, and as the students know, because as we put it in the program of studies, that if they want the Roger Williams credit, then there is a fee associated with the course. So as provided we get the 20, then that's what we're saying, is there'll be no bill whatsoever to the district. It'll be the same process as a student who's opting for the AP assessment. So like in the example you just said before, right? Students can take the AP course and not pay for the AP assessment. It's the same thing. Students will be able to take this course and not pay the Roger Williams piece, and students will be able to take the course and pay the Roger Williams piece so that they can earn the Roger Williams credit.
But are we guaranteeing Roger Williams $5,940 no matter what?
Yes, because we're guaranteeing 20 students will be part of, 20 of the 120 to 150 students will opt for that option.
Aaron? Aaron?
Okay, I just have a few questions. This one just came into my head. I'm sorry if I'm just not getting it. So how do you know there will be 20 students at least who
Based on the numbers that we're getting now already, when there's only 33 students that are signed, that are possible to get the credit, we're getting the numbers. So if we go from 33 and we're getting the numbers, and then we go to 120 or 150, I would say we would have more students choose the Roger Williams option than less students choose the Roger Williams option.
So but you so you won't know though. So at what point do you basically solicit the families for the money to do this? And because truly, like, until that point, you won't know, right? Or is there a contract, or how does it? I don't know how it works with families this year, because my question was going to be, since I see 21, 22, I was thinking that this was going to be starting for the next school year, because these students are already enrolled. So just looking for clarification.
So I guess to answer the question, so what we're working out with Roger Williams, one of the things that we're working out is when they'll get the money from the students, or the check will be cut from us, but we'll be collecting the money from the students. So what we're looking to do is be able to have it be in the second semester, where our first semester pre-calc students have already completed the course. And then our second semester college algebra students will be partway through the course. And so we're setting it up with them that at the end of our school year is when we pay. And so at that point, we'll know, but I mean, we can certainly do something to ask ahead of time. At this point, do you are you planning on doing the Roger Williams University credit? Not going to exclude them from the class or anything like that. And it's not going to be something that, well, you said at the beginning that you would contemplate doing it, just merely for us to be able to get some idea of numbers.
So we have, the students take the course, they get a B. We have some that want to take and purchase the credits. We have, but we don't have the full 20. We would be, the school committee or the school department would be responsible for the difference. Where would that money come from?
Go ahead. So assuming that, if you assume worst case scenario and we don't get the full 20 students, it would have to come from the high school budget, or we would have to budget something for that moving forward. We don't anticipate that is going to be an issue. However, there are absolutely no guarantees on that, as we know. So it would have to be something that was accounted for in the budget. And our hope is, as we're moving forward, we're confident we're going to have many more than 20 students, in which case, as a school committee, as a school district, we would be able to say, okay, so moving forward, we might be able to have a reserve for those students who may not be able to afford it, for, something to that effect.
So financially though, what line would those funds be coming from in our budget?
So as
Ms.
Thibodeau's looking at Mr. Frucci.
I'm looking at the administration. Where would the money come from?
I would end up meeting with the high school principal and ask her what line she's going to reappropriate funds for to cover the expense. So I'd work with them to determine what they're going to reprioritize to cover. Either that, if it's a student activity, it's a principal discretion. So one of those two pieces would be at the high
Okay.
school level.
Thank you.
And because many of the students who are in the either college algebra or the college pre-calc are also part of our engineering CTE pathway, we would also be able to utilize Perkins funds to fund some of that portion as well. Thank you, Nicole.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The memorandum of agreement you have in front of you tonight doesn't specifically discuss or contain the answers to the questions that were also provided. So there's nothing in the memorandum of agreement that states what students will be charged. So I think your memorandum of understanding that you have needs more information. It's not clear.
Well, I mean, I think that's more important. I just want to be careful. I agree that it would be great to negotiate that all of our kids can do this. Anybody who wants to and is qualified can do it for free. Unfortunately, Roger Williams is a private business, and they could say, no, I'd prefer the students come here and pay full whack for these 3 credits. I just don't want to cut off our nose to spite our face and end up not being able to offer our kids $100 college credits. I wonder if another negotiation would be bring the total down and less number of kids we have to sort of guarantee. That might be another way to go that would sort of reduce our exposure.
I'm absolutely willing to meet with Roger Williams again, based on what the committee's pleasure is. So if that's what you would prefer us to do, I'm absolutely more than willing to do that. I don't know if it'll be successful or not. I'm not going to guarantee success, but I'm more than willing to do that.
Just one quick last thing, and thank you so much. Sort of going off of what Nikki was just saying and then what Victor said earlier, I wonder if part of the discussion with Roger Williams could be, would they be willing to set up that reserve that we're all interested in having have happen, so that students who can't afford this but should be in this can do that? Might be worth bringing up to them. Thank you.
I have one more question. That's okay. What's our AP participation? So you'd kind of expect that kids who would take AP pre-calc or whatever, it might reflect in kids that would do this. So in years past, how many kids have taken those AP classes? Are we talking tens?
Oh, enrolled in AP classes.
And who take the tests?
We have at least one AP calculus. A couple of years we've had two, so it's somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere between, I would say, 20 and 27 students that are in the AP calculus.
And how many would take the test?
How many will take the AP test?
Yeah.
All of them usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, are we good? All right, we have.
I know her name was announced. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
if there's another one.
But if they're talking about going back to the school.
What we can, we have two choices. You can amend the motion to send them back, or you can vote no, or you can vote yes.
Can I ask one more question in that case? Would it make sense? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's like a super specific or imminent timeline, but I just want to make sure. Does it work for you and for the students in this class to go back to the college and
So worst case scenario, to answer your question, is the students will still receive the curriculum. They'll receive a college level curriculum who are taking the course. Worst case scenario, they won't have the option to purchase or get the college credits. So.
And one more thing. I'm so sorry. I don't know my head is just filled with questions.
It's Monday. It's okay.
The next, the follow-up I have to the question I just asked is if this were passed tonight, is there still opportunity to go back and kind of talk about some of these things like the reserve maybe being covered by Roger Williams and some other things that were talked about? Is there an opportunity to kind of continue this conversation as this partnership moves forward?
Absolutely, especially considering I think that this is the second year or the follow-up, and I think it would have been needed to be renegotiated anyway before next year to make sure that it was still going to be in effect. So that conversation could start happening, immediately. We could schedule a meeting. So whatever you decide, is fine. We can either, go back to them now or renegotiate for next year.
But if you go back to them now, there's still time, I think, is what Aaron was saying. If you go back to them now, there's still time for us to vote on this at the next meeting and we can all go ahead. We're not going to lose out by going back.
So I can't answer that 100% except to say that when we were in negotiation with them for a year and a half, the last time before they came up with this number, I think it was probably 3 months before they were able to get back to us. Things move very slowly at the university level, evidently. They had to go through a lot of different channels before it came back to us. So I can't guarantee how soon that would happen, but we will do our best.
But there is a risk that by not voting for this tonight, we might lose the opportunity for the students this year.
That's a possibility, yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Hearing, since there are no more questions, all in favor of accepting the MOU from Roger Williams?
Aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Can you negotiate some?
And we will set
full-time-
up, thank you very much, and we will set up a meeting as soon as possible to start that conversation. Thank you.
They charge us for the full time.
We do.
It's a special thing from Mount Hope.
Right.
Let's move on. The approval of the bid award. The approval of the bid awards. Tony, is that you? Yeah. It's Tom.
So we just have one that I want to present tonight, and that was some equipment that was solicited under the ESSER funding. And it's replacement of custodial equipment that has gotten considerable use in the district. It's just looking to replace types of equipment that we have. It's primarily new HEPA-rated vacuum cleaners, new air movers, and new wet dry vac systems to be able to remove moisture from the building. This became really apparent about a month ago when we had one of the torrential downpours. We had water infiltration in several of the buildings. We didn't have proper equipment to get the water off the floor fast enough, and that creates health concerns if the water gets under the carpets and into the floor tiles. So I think it's important that we have this from a preventative maintenance point of view. It's a good use of the funds. We got 4 different proposals on the equipment, so it's a really good apples to apples comparison. The recommendation was to go with KC maintenance for $10,457.94. So are there any questions, or it's a pretty straightforward?
You discussed it at the budget subcommittee meeting. Yeah.
We did.
So, I need a motion to.
Motion to accept.
Second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Whoa,
When,
that's good.
we're going to change this agenda a little bit to reflect that the budget subcommittee approved sending this bid award up, because it doesn't say that on here. So we need to, when a subcommittee approves something, we should say that on the agenda so that everybody knows that the subcommittee that is up to date on it. All right. The next thing on the agenda is the procedure for approval of grants and grant spending. And I'm going to turn to Aaron to make the motion, please.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion, I'd like to make a motion to send all grants to the budget subcommittee for approval prior to submission.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The next thing on the agenda is the ELC grant. Dr. Santa, you're up on that?
In your packet this evening, you have a grant that was submitted by the district on September 9th, and it's called the ELC grant. It was put out by the Rhode Island Department of Health. Each district in Rhode Island was given the opportunity to have funding to support COVID prevention and testing within schools. I know there was a question about what ELC stands for, and it stands for epidemiology and lab capacity. So this is a one-time grant for non-recurring expenses related to COVID-19. In the budget, you'll see that we have budgeted for September to December to support our schools. I'm sorry, did I say that right? September to December. And then at that point, we would reevaluate the expenses to see if they are still needed. One of the things that we're finding with COVID-19 is that we don't necessarily know if these are year-long costs or if we may only need these expenses halfway through the year. So we also have the ESSER fund, which is also related to COVID prevention. In the event that we want to continue these activities, we could continue them through ESSER 3. They would be eligible for that. Essentially, the grant would provide funding for our nurse technicians, and I do have our nurses here this evening. If you have any questions about the testing procedures that they would be doing under this grant. It would also provide funding for a courier when we do testing in schools using the PCR test. It requires that we send them to the state lab, and we are told that through this grant, schools would receive prioritized analysis of our test samples or specimens that are sent in. We also have funding in there, small stipends for other positions to support this process. And also not just related to testing, we also have funding for PPE for our schools. And PPE, what's listed as a manager or a distributor, and we had that last year. It was very helpful. As schools need additional PPE, they're able to deliver them to the schools. They're also able to work with the Rhode Island Department of Health to go and pick up materials that the Department of Health are issuing. And that is in there as well. And that is essentially it. So it would cover the costs of our schools to expand from the testing that they have been doing, which is the BINEX testing, it's the rapid test, to also be able to offer the PCR test. So I know that our nurses are much more eloquent in describing the differences between those. Mrs. Estrella, would you mind coming up and just explaining to us how this grant will help us expand from what we have been doing last year to using the PCR test?
Good evening. So the changes that have been made in our testing mode by the Department of Health, the BINEX testing is not to be used for asymptomatic testing. Asymptomatic means you have no symptoms. It's what we were doing last year when we opted for parents that opted in and so that we could test their kids. So we were doing surveillance testing. We did catch positive cases, and we did with the BINEX test kits. But now they want us now to use the antigens for symptomatic cases, okay? So if you come to my office and you have a runny nose and a cough and a sore throat, I can swab you with a BINEX. Now, with your parents' permission, I can do the BINEX swab, plant that, wait the 15 minutes, and if that comes back positive, you're positive and you isolate. But if it comes back negative and you have symptoms, you need to go for a PCR test. We have supplies. Well, let me rephrase that. I have supplies right now because I'll be the trainer to teach. We can all have supplies to do PCR testing. So then we could swab that child before we send them home to quarantine until we get the results. We feel that this is a quicker way than me calling you up and saying you have to pick up your son or daughter. Then you have to make an appointment at a testing site. And the testing sites are now becoming overloaded. They're maxed out. And as you know, that they don't have the K-12 site in Bristol anymore. Our closest site is Barrington. And with the rise of cases due to the Delta virus, they are becoming inundated. So this is a way to facilitate the testing quicker. And we were told at the training that when our specimens, the K-12 specimens, arrive at Dominion Lab, they're put to the front of the line for analysis. So if you go in to Barrington and get tested, yours will be backed up a little bit. So you wait 72 hours, where our kids 24 to 48 hours. So this is a tool in our toolbox so that we could get the kids back in. There's also the option that we could do pool testing, which is surveillance testing. And the theory behind that is that the pool is, you would put 6 students together, they would swab, and each go into their own test tube, plus then they do a second swab, and it would go into the pool tube. They only test the pool tube. And if that fluid comes back positive, then they go back and they test the 6 students that are associated with that. So it's quicker when you do pool testing. You're not doing every single student, you're just doing a group, and then you go back and you research who was in that pool of the dirty water. So this is I look at this as it's another strategy, it's another layer in mitigation that we are hopefully keeping COVID out of our schools. Our job here is to keep COVID out of our schools. And if you look at all our information last year and you look what's happening now, the spread is not occurring in school because we're stopping it. We're stopping it at the door. The incidents that have happened, the positive cases that we've had between the high school and Rockwell, and Mrs. Perry can speak to Colt Andrews, they happened on the outside, okay? So it's not, so what we are trying to do is keep it from spreading in our schools. So if your child is ill, we're trying to facilitate the testing being done faster, the results getting back faster, and your child returning to school faster. Now you might ask, well, why are we doing it all? Because this is COVID and the Delta virus is very prevalent. And so all the symptoms of COVID are the same symptoms of the flu, of allergies, of colds, with the exception of a loss of taste and smell. So you have to eliminate, and you have to rule out, you have to eliminate the evil one first. And once you know it's not COVID, then we get you treated for your strep, your sinus infection, your head cold, whatever you want to call it, your allergies are out of control. Because that COVID's the most important to get rid of. I try to correlate it with if you go to the ER, particularly women, and you're having chest pain, but it's on the right side, they're not going to check your gallbladder first. They're going to rule out a cardiac event, okay? And then they're going to go after your gallbladder because your heart's more important than your gallbladder. So I'm trying to, if that helps explain it a little bit. So we think, and our nurse techs have become invaluable to us. We're swamped, we're drowning, we are drowning. The documentation alone that we have to do and send to the Department of Health, because we are the contact tracers. We are sending long documents. We do I'll just speak for me. In the school here, I pull the seating charts. I look at everybody that's around the person that's positive. We look how far apart they are. Did they stay masked? We are not a stable pod here. We don't fall under a lot of the same guidelines. These kids, they ride to school together. They hang out together. There's a lot of different circumstances that affect a high school. So I do all the contact tracing. Then I verify whether or not they're vaccinated. Because if your child is vaccinated, they do not have to quarantine if they're a close contact of a positive case. They do have to get tested, but they do not have to quarantine. They do have to watch for symptoms, okay? Your unvaccinated students are the ones that are going to have to quarantine and test. We have moved to a 5-7 quarantine so we can get them back sooner. But that's all being done here at the school. So my nurse tech helps me load all that information into the documents, the spreadsheets that are being sent to the Department of Health. It happens the same at the other schools. We have to note, it's generally me that makes the phone call to parents, but so our nurse techs have become really invaluable, and they would be trained also on how to do testing. Last year, Erica and I did all the testing here with the help of, we had some people that signed on that thought it was really fun. And so they helped us, like the school psychologists, the social workers. They did some clerical work or just overseeing. So it's a team effort, but the bulk of it falls on me and my nurse tech as the same as the other schools. So our nurse techs are really, really important to us, and that's money to pay them. And I'm rambling on because I'm passionate about this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any more? Do you have any questions for me? I'm sorry.
No, Diane, this is about the process.
Mhm.
What she's talking about is what we're going to be talking about in October and explaining to all of the parents. This is on the agenda, and I think I clearly explained that to you the other day because we didn't know about the grant. We wanted a process and a procedure on this grant. Discussions about COVID are coming in October. So
COVID's still here. I apologize, Marge. I thought it was just to sort of explain what we're getting out of this grant.
No, Ellen, the last thing you need to do is apologize about anything, please. I know you're working very, very hard, and that's just not my wheelhouse for that. I just know that this was put on the agenda for the process part of it.
Okay.
And what we were going to do about it. And we decided that last week when we also decided that October would be about COVID. And you would explain what you do and what the cases are and all the things that you have going on, because we really need to let the public know where we are in the process in our school system. And I'd rather have it come from somebody who really knows than somebody who's guessing because they heard it from somebody else who told somebody else. So that was the point behind it. But this is really about the process. So we're going to talk about the process and about testing tonight and whether or not how we want to handle this grant and whether or not we want to get into the business of testing and taking the tests to Quonset every day. So that's what this is about. But what you're doing on the front lines is critical. It's very important. And I know you're passionate about it, and I'm thankful for that because children benefit from your passion. So I really hope that I see you, all the other nurses, school doctor, everybody in October to just spread the word. But right now we need to talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you. All right, in order to have a discussion, I need to have a motion to accept the ELC grant.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Anybody have anything they want to say? Go ahead.
I had a question. Now it is sort of on the agenda, so we can mention the previous people who spoke in public comment about their concerns about quarantining.
It's not on the agenda to quarantine.
My question is this. If you had this extra support and you had the facility to test people in a more, in a quicker way, rather than having to make an appointment and then waiting now up to 72 hours, do you see a world in which kids are out of the school building less because you have the tests, the ability to test with consent in school?
That's kind of twofold. It would be if it was a symptomatic child and they came in and I tested them and then got their PCR test off to the lab right away. Yes. In the event that it's a close contact of a positive case and they are unvaccinated, that's when it becomes different. That's when you need to quarantine. You need to test by day 5. And if that test is negative, after day 7, you can come out of quarantine. So in that case, a close contact that's not vaccinated, it would not speed up the process. Someone who's symptomatic and is coming in with those symptoms, yes, I believe it would speed up the process of how long they'd have to be out of school.
Thank you.
And sorry, just one follow-up question. And it sounds like with or without these tests, and this I just need some clarification on, it sounds like you need the extra help. You need these nurse techs, and this would be a way to pay for those, or is that you only need them if there's testing?
No, we need them for more than just testing.
Because of the contact tracing, right?
But they're that extra pair of hands in each office right now. And it's been, I don't want to divert from the COVID thing, but the nurses' offices are usually walking disasters for many months when we start school without COVID. So having this extra adult in the office is particularly helpful. We have no clerical help. We have nothing. So they're doing all of this with us and for us. So, and now with COVID, all the extra clerical work, the nursing techs have become even more important.
Great. So I just think it's important to note that this grant is not just about the physical tests. This is about the support for you guys.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of concerns regarding the MOU itself. So I see that the financials, it says $154,000 for 94. However, it says that we get reimbursed quarterly. And then it says requests for reimbursements that are completed incorrectly will be returned to the recipient of corrections. Prior written approval, it goes through this whole thing. So we're paying upfront cost. We're not getting the amount is what this MOU says. So we've got to get reimbursement for the expenses that we're incurring that are related to this.
So it's similar to the ESSER funds.
Okay, but
So yes, to your
we're
point.
paying,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yep.
And we're not getting reimbursed until quarterly, it says. reimbursements on a quarterly basis of all expenditures. Is my, yeah, it's number 9 on page 4.
Page 9?
Yeah, or page 4. Yeah, page
Number
4,
9.
number 9.
On page 9.
Sorry.
Number 4.
Sorry. Page 4, number 9.
On a quarterly basis.
Huh. I know, I'm tired.
Yes, you read that correctly. It is a quarterly basis in the invoice.
Pricing, and it's typical of all the grants that we have.
Okay, so we're
including
paying-
CRP, et cetera.
So we're paying upfront.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is on page 7E, and I don't know who answers this, but it says on-site inspections. The recipient agrees to permit on-site monitoring, evaluations, and inspections of all activities related to the agreement by officials of RIDO, its designee, and where appropriate, the federal government. Is that, so they're coming in to do on-site inspections?
That's also typical of a federal grant where they reserve the right to come in and see the program in action.
Yeah, it doesn't say reserve, it just says on-site inspections. So does that mean they're going to be doing on-site inspections? Usually it says like reserve the right to. This doesn't say that, it just says on-site inspections.
I haven't heard any more than what's in here, so it doesn't, I mean, the assumption would be that someone may come on site to inspect to make sure that the program is placed and that the funds are being used appropriately.
Okay, and then the other concern, it says the superintendent will perform the duties of lead responsible for district-wide logistics and resource management. This includes collaborating with district and school administrators to understand and establish a process and procedures for resource requests, procurement and distribution in support of COVID testing efforts, monitoring efficiencies and outcome, will maintain accountability of resource expanded and determine fixture needed in order to maintain and establish testing programs. My concern is our superintendent and our interim superintendent needs to focus on educating our students. And I think we've taken away from really the crux of our education, and we're adding more to a superintendent with kind of these extra responsibilities for the PCR testing. And it sounds like the PCR testing, they're going to test the student, and then we have to drive them to Quonset, I think someone said. Is that accurate? And then we have our superintendent's going to be tied up with making sure that all these programs are running efficiently and effectively, when my concern is that our education is really struggling right now. And I really feel like this is RIDE's wheelhouse and not the school department. They chose to get rid of the Stop and Shop site. I think we should be pushing back. Like we're not the Department of Health. We're a school. And I understand the Binex testing, and I appreciate the nurse. I know you guys are under a lot, and I appreciate all your efforts. I just feel that I want our superintendent to be concentrated on education first, and I feel like this is just another thing that we're paying up front, and some of the documents saying like the request for reimbursement, if it's inaccurate, they won't refund us. They're going to do on-site tests, the on-site inspections, and the PCR thing. The Binex thing I'm okay with parents' permission, but this is like, for me, a whole other kind of issue. And I think for me, I know a symptom is a headache, and we're going to be sending out a PCR test for a headache as well. Is that correct?
Are other districts implementing this?
Yeah, but the thing is, the parents, it's up to the parents to send them, and.
Right, it's just gonna be more time that they are actually going to
be out of school, so we're just trying to eliminate
But
that
you,
step.
but you just said if they're not vaccinated, it's going to be the same amount of time.
If they're not
We're not.
If they're close contact.
If
Wait a
they're not
minute.
Oh.
vaccinated and they're close contact.
Sorry.
No, I don't mean to be rude, but this is about the process. This is about the fact that this meeting is the first time we reviewed this grant. We had no idea until last week what the grant encompassed, what it meant. And so that's what I
Sorry.
meant when I said process and testing, not about looking about COVID, but about the process for the grant and the process that we would go through as a district if we entered into this MOU. That's what we're talking about. So
Yeah, I just have one more thing. I will. Sorry. And then the statement of work, did we already submit them a statement of work? It's a statement of work, statement of goals, deliverables, and performance criteria.
Yes, it was a testing plan that was spelled out, essentially what Mrs. Estrella said.
Can we see that testing plan?
I thought that was
Isn't
in your packet. There should have
the
been
working plan.
4 attachments.
Right here.
it's at the end. Yeah, the last page.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the working plan, testing
Okay.
plan.
And then the deliverables, what would be the deliverables?
From the way I understand it, the deliverables would be that we'd be testing the children and taking the test Quonset instead of asking parents to come and get their children and then get their children tested if they need to, correct? Pretty much, no, I don't want to get you. I'm sorry.
There is $4,500 in here for a courier, so I don't think a staff member is leaving to go drive to a lab.
Yeah, it's our courier going to drive to bring it to Quonset.
Right, my point is it's paid for it, that's not a thing that.
Well,
we're
we
having
pay
to
it first and then they
Right.
reimburse us quarterly. So
They
we're taking
reimburse what
staff,
we use.
we are taking staff away from our regular.
Well, we would be increasing the hours of the staff to be able to do that.
I was just going to ask, what is the normal?
Mr. Cabral has.
No, go ahead, go, Kelly, go ahead.
I didn't see you, Victor.
No, you had your hand.
I was just wondering what the normal hours were for the courier. Anyway.
We have a part-time courier. I don't have the specific hours, but we wrote additional hours into the grant to pay them to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Diane, I take it we're going to vote on this situation here. What happens if it's voted down?
Say that again, please.
Suppose we vote negative.
Then we would tell the Rhode Island Department of Health that we don't want the $150,000.
Understood. How about the nurse techs that we've got in here? Who's going to pay for those?
So the nurse techs are reimbursable under ESSER 3. And that was our plan to pay for them anyway. So this is just supplementing that, freeing up those funds, which can also be used for curriculum and instruction and infrastructure.
So it won't come out of our budget at all?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Indirectly, though. Yes, sir.
So, thank you, Ellen, for the information and the description. I had a question on the funding. So basically, it's 113,000 and change between supplies, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the supplies are only for those collecting and sampling the screening. So it wouldn't be necessarily extra supplies that we would be giving out. Because in the memorandum, it said only for those collecting samples or screening for the PPE reimbursement.
Correct. So they would
Okay.
be in the nurse's office for their use.
So, and then the air filters, that was probably one of the biggest chunks out of this. It was $35,000 for air filters. Would the air filters and the supplies also be able to come out of ESSER 3?
Yes, it could.
Okay,
So this is just an alternate fund source.
Right.
Similar to ESSER 3 and what it addresses.
and the nurse techs, so the need for nurse techs, that's been validated or justified. This is saying that it's going to need 20 hours a week for each school for nurse techs for testing. If there is no testing, how many hours a week do we need nurse techs?
So actually it's.
Or how many hours do nurse techs work a week?
37.5 hours per week, and the rate is $20 per hour.
So they would still work the 37.5 even if we do not have testing.
Correct.
So I understand everybody's concerns. I don't feel that this is the role of the school department. I feel our role is education. I've expressed this when we met prior to this. My sister is a nurse, and she had to get tested. She was exposed to someone who was COVID positive. They didn't actually do the testing in the hospital that she works in. They made her go to a separate facility, and that was a medical facility. I don't think that it's our business to get into Rido's business. Our job is to educate. We keep overstretching ourselves, and we need to stop doing that. We need to start really focusing on what our job is, and this is not our job.
Anybody else? Yes, Darren.
So I disagree with that approach. I think that it is our job to protect the health of the students that are under our purview and the staff as well. And given a worldwide pandemic, to have the power and the funding to address what we can at a community level, when, I mean, maybe your sister couldn't be tested there because they were so overwhelmed, you know?
They don't do the testing there.
Okay, well, okay. Having the opportunity to address the issue in-house, I think is appropriate. I think it's appropriate for us to take care of the health of our school community. And that is part of our responsibility in a worldwide pandemic emergency health situation.
Yes. I think anything we can do to keep more of our kids in their classroom, in front of their teacher and with their peers in a safe way is worth doing. I agree that our job is to educate our children in a safe and healthy and equitable environment. And what I keep hearing is that if we use these funds for the air filters, for the nurse techs, it is freeing up the ESSER 3 funds that we can then put toward curriculum. We can put that toward teaching our students. So this is not even indirectly, this is directly supporting us in our job to educate, because it is supporting the learning of our students by freeing up that ESSER 3 money that we can funnel back into our classrooms instead of it being used for the things that we can have this alternate funding for. So to me, it's a no-brainer. I do understand the concern about the fact that we have to pay up front for it. And again, only for what we use. That's obviously why we're reimbursed only quarterly, because we're only reimbursed for what we use, and they don't know what we're going to use in terms of testing. So for me, just the fact that this will free up ESSER funds that we can funnel back into teaching so that we can get back to remembering why we're here is worth it, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question about, I don't know, I don't know if it's in here, are there a certain number of tests that need to be done in order to be eligible? Like, do you have to do so many tests a week or so many tests a month or? No, a quota. Like, is there a quota to meet of how many tests you need to do to receive the funds?
No, there is not.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Ellen, would you like to go ahead and finish your thought?
The thing about the courier, you're not looking at like I do a test and then he or she runs the sponsor. At the end of the day, you can go to the district and collect all the PCR testing. One trip. No, I don't think that, okay, I called the courier and say, I just did a test, you gotta run it down there. I just want to say that that's clearly, we talked about the courier.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what some of my colleagues have said as far as feeling that it is part of our job to protect the ecosystem that are our schools. And it's like so many other things when you live in a community and you decide to be part of that community that you have to protect all of the pieces. So this kind of closes the loop in my mind that we're kind of having full circle care for our community if we're committing to using this particular opportunity to make sure that we're testing. And as you so eloquently said, we're stopping this at the door, and this just makes that much more seamless in my mind. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, Karen.
I just have one more concern about the manpower, because you're already swamped, and it's not that you don't, I 110% agree that you need a second set of hands and that you don't have clerical support. But I just want to make sure that this doesn't create more work in terms of accepting this money. Because, you know, yes, it's a pandemic, but if you think about it, I mean, our schools are filled with teachers. We have very few nurses. And I know it's a pandemic, but it's hard. I think it's a lot to put on a nurse and an assistant to, you know, try to manage the pandemic. And I do agree, you know, yeah, every little bit helps. And yes, it's at the community level. I'm just worried about the amount of work and is there enough money in there to cover everything? And are we going to end up having to spend more money? I just don't know the numbers for what all this is really going to cost.
Well, I know last year we talked about testing and we said no. And then the health department changed their mind and made it a lot less onerous for us because we didn't have to do all the tracing. We didn't have to do the contact tracing. We could send some of that up to the state, but the nurses still worked very, very hard, and you are correct on that. But as I said in the beginning, the reason that this was on the agenda was for process. It wasn't about COVID. It was about the fact that we hadn't seen the grant. We knew the people who had been hired. We hadn't seen the grant. We didn't know what the grant covered. We didn't know what you were going to do with the grant, and we wanted to know. And I do believe that if somebody, I'm going to be simplistic, but this is how I feel. If somebody calls me and says, your child is sick, then I'm going to come to the school and I'm going to pick them up and I'm going to take them home and I'm going to take them to the pediatrician, or I'm going to take them for a test, or I'm going to do whatever it is I think is appropriate for my child. That's just as quick as encompassing all this extra work to test at school. And the second thing is, I don't necessarily agree with you Nikki, that this frees up for curriculum because I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with the way it's done. And so I may be in the minority again, but I'm going to vote no. Anybody else? Hearing none.
I think just to be clear, that it's not about parent choice if they want to test. If your kid is sent home, they can't come back without the test.
Okay, so then the parent has to take the child to be tested.
I just
And
wanted to be clear it wasn't.
That takes away the time for the courier. It takes away the time for the nurse who has, because we have children in our building who are medically fragile, who have other issues that are going on, who simply might break a bone or whatever. The nurses have a lot of things going on already. I know, I've seen them. They are never sitting still and they are never reading a book. They are working all day, every day in that room. But I think it's time for the school committee to decide whether they want to go for that grant or not. So I'm going to ask.
I just have a comment. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but our nurses are asking for this. So I
Right.
don't understand why we're sitting here talking about them not being able to handle it and then being overburdened as it is when they're asking for it and saying that this will actually assist them.
Right. I'm not going to comment on that because I'm not.
You don't have to, it wasn't for you, it was just my comment based on what you had said.
Okay.
From my observations here tonight.
Okay, fine.
Is this the only way that the nurses can get help is through this grant?
They're paid on ESSER.
ESSER 3.
Okay, so now, all in favor, signify by raising your hand, please. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, the next thing on our agenda is the National Grid Energy Efficiency Project, which I will add was passed unanimously by the Budget Subcommittee. So, Mr. Wood or Tony, I don't.
To give you a quick overview of what we presented to the Budget and Finance Committee. So, as I mentioned before, the district has for the last 6 years participated with National Grid in several energy efficiency projects, of which National Grid is both a sponsor and an underwriter of. They do that by helping us identify projects and being able to identify contractors and giving us fixed costs for doing the projects. They then offer grants to give us an incentive to do that. Then they offer a funding mechanism of being able to finance it by the savings that the energy efficiency projects will have against our electric bills. So specifically, what I'm asking is that I was able to work with National Grid over the last 4 months to identify 5 separate projects. The total is about $261,000 of construction work for energy efficiency upgrades in the buildings that inevitably will save the district about $40,000 a year in energy savings. In order to do that $261,000 of work, National Grid is offering us a $65,000 grant off the top of the project just to give us an encouragement to do the project, in which case they would be financing for the district about $200,000 of that project. And as I said, the projects, once completed, would save the district about $40,000 a year in operating expense. So the projects will pay for themselves in a 5-year time period. So what National Grid is offering is that if we spend, with their participation, do the energy efficiency projects over the next 5 years, they would allow us to, or they would capture the cost savings in our energy bills to pay down the cost of the project. And then after 5 years, all that energy saving reverts back to the district in operating expense savings. So as I mentioned earlier, the district has done these over the last 5 years. The district has already entered into almost $2 million worth of work with National Grid and has set up similar energy efficiency programs. And it's a great program. It's, in my opinion, a win-win. The district doesn't have to front any of the money. It's all recuperated or recaptured by energy savings. And then after 5 years, all the energy cost savings reverts back to district savings. So it's I think it's a very worthy proposition.
Do I need a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
So this was also approved by the budget
Yeah,
facility. Okay, sorry.
Anybody else? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, thank you very much. The last thing on our agenda is the organizational chart, and that's really an FYI, and if anybody had any questions, they could ask, we're not voting on them. Hearing none, I'll entertain. This is the organizational chart, Carly, that you would take care of to put into the policy. Absolutely. Thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wait, do you mean this goes to policy for discussion? Okay.
I'll entertain.
So
a
moved.
motion. What?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
I want to stay longer.
No, you're
I'm just
sick.
kidding.
There's something wrong with you.
Just kidding. I really have to pee.